What happens when a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE agent in Minneapolis, Minnesota fires fatal shots during a massive federal enforcement sweep and the rest of the country erupted in protest? Well, that's not a hypothetical. This is exactly what unfolded this week when Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old Minneapolis resident who was shot and killed by an ICE agent during an immigration operation that was tied directly to a surge ordered by President Donald J. Trump's administration. Since then, tens of thousands of people have marched in the streets in Minneapolis, and protests have spread to cities across America as people demand accountability and answers. Now, you've already seen the clips of the crowds, of heated confrontations and political leaders that are trading blame. But what you have not seen is the full story hiding behind the shooting, the federal response, the country's loss of trust, and the way that this incident has become lightning in a political powder keg, folks. In the next few minutes, we're going to go ahead and break down exactly how this moment became a national uprising, why authorities from Minneapolis to DC are clashing, and what this really means for immigration policy and civil unrest in 2026 with clarity, credibility, and comprehension. Folks, today's story absolutely explodes. Definitely hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's be very clear about what just happened, okay? Because clarity matters here. This unfolded in Minneapolis, Minnesota during a federal enforcement operation carried out by ICE, operating under the Department of Homeland Security during the presidency of Donald J. Trump. Now, this was not some random traffic stop. This was not a street level misunderstanding. This was an active federal pursuit tied to an immigration enforcement triggered by a suspect attempting to evade agents and used a vehicle in a way that federal officials say posed a lethal threat. Here's the part that most people are missing here. The shooting occurred at the end of that pursuit, not at the beginning. So within minutes, short clips hit social media, stripped of content, stripped of sequence, and the narrative hardened instantly. Online, it became ICE guns down woman. Offline, investigators began reconstructing a far more complicated chain of events. Those two realities collided immediately, and Minneapolis became ground zero for the fallout. Now, this didn't stay in Minneapolis because it never had the chance to. Minneapolis wasn't the story. It was the spark. The emotional fuel was already there, loaded with memory, frustration, and unresolved anger going all the way back to 2020. So the moment the word ICE hit the headline, the incident stopped being about a single encounter and it became more of a symbol, fair or not, of everything that people already believed. Protest psychology took over fast. Once crowds formed, escalation became inevitable. Not because everyone knew the facts, but because they didn't need to. The image was enough. The chant was enough. The assumption filled in the gaps. That's how a local enforcement action turns into a national uprising before investigators even finish their briefing. Now, this is exactly why protests spread way beyond Minnesota within hours. This wasn't coordination at first, it was emotional contagion. And once that momentum starts, facts, they don't slow down, they chase it. And this is exactly why moments like this matter beyond politics, because instability doesn't stay on the streets, it bleeds into everything else. Now, if you're over 40 and you're planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you've already built may be smaller than you think. Now, there's a question that most people never stop to ask. Is your portfolio actually built for what comes next? Now, a lot of people who are in their 40s and 50s, they eventually realize that their savings are almost entirely tied to markets, policies, and paper assets, with very little protection if conditions shift fast. Growth matters, but as retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, preservation matters just as much. And this is why I've been pointing people toward Noble Gold Investments. They help investors reduce risk by adding physical gold to their portfolios, not hype, not pressure, just straight answers and a strategy that's built around your goals. Now, if you want to understand your options, now may be a very smart time to have that conversation. Just click the link down below, go to RonYatesGold.com. That's RonYatesGold.com and build for the long term. In fact, give my friends a call over at Noble Gold Investments right now. Phone number is 877-646-5347. You can see the number at the bottom of your screen right there. So now this is where the pressure campaigns begin. Almost immediately, activists and media voices, they started framing this ICE agent as the next test case, the next symbol, the next Derek Chauvin. And this is why FBI matters, okay? Federal agents are reviewed under a completely different standard than local police. The FBI doesn't assess optics. They they assess jurisdiction, threat level, and rules of engagement under the Department of Homeland Security. So here's what most people don't understand. DHS agents are authorized to respond to vehicular threats differently than municipal officers because a vehicle is legally classified as a deadly weapon. Now that matters because if the agent is sacrificed to political pressure rather than evidence, it doesn't just affect this case. It rewrites enforcement behavior nationwide. Every future ICE operation becomes more dangerous, slower, and more hesitant. That's the precedent risk that nobody wants to talk about. This is not just about one agent. This is about whether federal law enforcement can function at all. Then came the moment that changed everything politically. Donald J. Trump, he didn't flinch. Trump defended ICE publicly, clearly, and without qualification. That single move reframed the entire conflict. Overnight, this is no longer just a local tragedy or a disputed shooting. It became a national line in the sand between federal authority and activist resistance. Here's where it gets worse, though. Trump's backing doesn't calm protests. It hardens them. Demonstrators aren't just protecting ICE anymore. They're protesting Trump himself. And that changes strategy. You can see it in the chants. You can see it in the escalation. Now, if you contrast that with the previous administration's hesitation to publicly back federal agents, which often left enforcement isolated and uncertain, Trump's posture signals the exact opposite. Enforcement will continue and accountability will follow evidence, not volume. That's why this moment exploded, because now both sides believe that the stakes are existential. So by this point, the damage was already done. Minneapolis, Minnesota wasn't just protesting, it was grinding to a halt. Streets shut down, businesses boarded up, schools closed out of caution. National media helicopters hovered overhead while Washington watched the pressure build. This wasn't about uncovering facts anymore. This is about consequence. And the consequence landed on regular people first. Workers couldn't get to jobs. Parents scrambled for childcare. Entire neighborhoods were paralyzed by uncertainty while protesters flooded federal buildings, demanding ICE leave the city entirely. The tension wasn't subtle. It was constant. Sirens, chants, standoffs. This is what happens when leadership hesitates and the narration fills the vacuum. The longer the silence stretches, the louder the streets get. And in moments like this, emotion moves faster than governance. Minnesota wasn't burning because Washington ordered it to. It was burning because nobody stepped in early enough to stop the momentum. And once unrest reaches that stage, it feeds itself. Then Tim Walz made his move, or at least he tried to. So Tim Walz, he authorized the National Guard to stage and prepare while simultaneously using language that suggested Minnesota was in a historic moment, even flirting with civil conflict rhetoric. Now that contradiction matters, folks, because words set expectations. When a governor talks like the state is under siege, but tells crowds to remain peaceful, protesters hear what they want to hear. The guard becomes either a threat or a trophy, not a deterrent. History shows this pattern rather clearly. Mixed messaging doesn't cool unrest, it legitimizes it. Was the National Guard there to stabilize, or was it there to signal defiance against federal authority under Donald J. Trump? Well, Tim Walz never fully clarified that. And in that ambiguity, the streets filled the gap. When leaders speak in symbols instead of instructions, crowds act in symbols too. That's how crowd control becomes war zone overnight. So this is where the clash hardens. Ilhan Omar publicly demanded that ICE leave Minneapolis. Now, that wasn't symbolic. That was a direct challenge to federal authority under Donald J. Trump. Sanctuary politics collided head-on with federal law, and there's no neutral ground on that collision. Local leadership in Minneapolis oscillated between silence and encouragement. No unified message, no clear boundary. Now that vacuum matters because when elected officials question the legitimacy of federal enforcement, protest confidence spikes. People don't just chant, they test the limits. Now, here's the new angle most people missed. Jurisdiction is not optional. Federal law supersedes local preference. When leaders imply otherwise, they don't just mislead, they invite confrontation. That's exactly what happened. The streets interpreted rhetoric as permission and enforcement interpreted it as resistance. This is how a policy disagreement turns operationally dangerous. Once the message simplified, everything accelerated. Get out. 2 words. Easy to chant, easy to share, easy to radicalize around. Crowd psychology thrives on clarity, not nuance. And in Minnesota, those words became a demand, not a protest. So this is how chants turn into pressure. Repetition creates identity. Identity creates momentum. Momentum creates risk. People weren't asking questions anymore. They were issuing ultimatums. And every time a local official echoed the sentiment, even indirectly, the crowd felt validated. That's the emotional engine here, not facts, not investigations, validation. So when thousands hear their anger reflected back by power, restraint collapses. The chant stops being expressive and it becomes directive. Leave the city, shut it down, force the issue. And once a movement frames itself as expelling authority rather than debating it, there's no off-ramp. This is why this moment felt combustible. The chant wasn't about policy. It was about control. And this is what happens when people don't realize things are changing until it's already cost them. A retiree told me that he finally sat down one night and added everything up. His Medicare plan had not changed, but his costs had, quietly, month after month. By the time he noticed, he had already overpaid $200 per month for an entire year. That was $2,400 gone. No refund, no warning. This is how it actually happens. Not all at once, just small leaks that you don't really see until the damage is already done. This is why I partner with Chapter. Chapter helps you see where your Medicare coverage is quietly draining your money before another year disappears. They review your plan, explain the traps in plain English, and they help you fix what's costing you. Now, most people, they don't want to wait anymore. They're already dialing the phone number right here at the bottom of your screen, and it's totally free, 909-563-8279, or they're clicking the link down below in the description, askchapter.org/Ron to get clarity, because finding out later is always more expensive than checking right now. So this is why the narrative stuck, folks, and this is also why it's so hard to undo. The video that went viral wasn't wrong. It was incomplete. Short clips, frozen frames, and cropped angles spread faster than context ever could. So what didn't circulate was the full sequence, the pursuit, the threat assessment, the moment that federal agents believed a vehicle posed lethal danger under Department of Homeland Security rules of engagement. Officer perspective footage rarely wins the first news cycle. Emotion always beats explanation. Media incentives reward immediacy and not accuracy. And so once the initial framing locked in, ICE shooting, every correction felt like spin, even if it wasn't. Now, this is how misinformation outruns investigation. Here's the uncomfortable truth, though. Most people didn't want the longer video. They wanted confirmation, and algorithms give them exactly that. So by the time the federal officials explained why force was used, millions had already chosen a side. This is why this footage didn't calm anything. It hardened positions, because by then the story wasn't about what happened. It was about what people needed to believe. So how did this jump from Minneapolis to a nationwide movement almost overnight? Pattern recognition, ICE enforcement, election year tension, viral footage, presidential backing by Donald J. Trump. Those ingredients trigger mobilization fast. Activist networks, they didn't invent the outrage, they amplified it. Digital coordination moved protests from city to city with remarkable speed. This wasn't spontaneous chaos everywhere. This was organized escalation in some places, emotional spillover in others. Federal response, by design, is limited. ICE enforces law, it doesn't control public reaction. So here's the new data point that really matters. Scale and coordination. Similar slogans, similar timing, similar demands. That doesn't happen by accident. Minneapolis became the proof of concept. If pressure works there, it works everywhere. And this is why it spread. Not because everyone knew the details, but because the moment fit a template that movements actually knew how to activate. So this is the part that leaves most people exhausted and angry at the exact same time. Trust breaks and nothing rushes in to replace it. Institutions say, wait for the facts, while the streets say, we've heard that before. Citizens feel squeezed between power that feels distant and protests that feel overwhelming. And in that gap, the same cycle repeats. People don't believe the process because they've watched outcomes feel predetermined. Protesters assume enforcement equals abuse. Law enforcement assumes any pause equals surrender. Leaders, they talk past each other. The result is a feedback loop where no one feels protected, everyone feels provoked, and the loudest narrative wins the moment. That's why this keeps on happening. Not because the facts are unknowable, but because faith in this system has eroded long before the incident. So once trust collapses, every new crisis inherits the anger of the last one. Minnesota didn't create the dynamic, it exposed it again in real time for the entire country to watch. So here's where this goes if nothing changes. The FBI decision becomes the next flashpoint, not just legally, but politically. Whatever conclusion they reach, this will be framed as either justice or betrayal. There will be no neutral reception. Now, that pressure will shape how future cases are handled, not just this one. For Donald J. Trump, this moment reinforces a clear enforcement trajectory. Federal law will be applied, and agents won't be abandoned to mob verdicts. That stance will deter some unrest and inflame other parts of it. Minnesota becomes the test case, not just for the immigration enforcement, but for whether federal authority can still operate inside hostile political environments. Now, here's the final choice facing the country, the United States as a whole, all 50 states: accountability through evidence or chaos through volume. Now, one path slows things down and demands patience. The other feels powerful in the moment, but leaves nothing standing afterward. This story is not over because it isn't really about one shooting. It's about whether the system bends to pressure or holds under it. Drop a like for the video, subscribe, share this video. We'll see you next time.